It was another sunny day in the city of Tidewater, Virginia. Nathan and Chessie were sitting at the sheds discussing the recent events taking place in the railroad community. So, did you hear the CSRX bought another engine? Yeah. I mean, can you believe it? They're in the middle of trying to save that N&WJ class, but then they go off and buy another engine instead of investing money into their campaign. Nathan, you gotta understand something here. Had CSRX not saved that new engine, it would have met the fate of the Scrapper's torch. Besides, that J Lives Matter campaign's got enough supporters that the 613's due to leave the scrapyard in 2 months' time. Besides, I've heard rumors that Mr. Reed is looking into leasing the 613 for a while. Oh. Well, off of that subject. Besides, I'm not sure why you're so concerned anyway. I thought you hated Southern engines. Speaking of Mr. Reed, here he comes right now. Wonder what he's up to. Good morning, Nathan and Chessie. I've come to you with important news. Well, what kind of news, sir? So, with the recent increase for supply and demand, I have decided it was applicable to purchase a new engine. A new engine? It isn't the 613, is it? No. Even though I still am intending on asking CSRX permission to lease the 613 for a few months after it's withdrawn from the scrapyard. But our new engine is entirely different. In fact, I think he's coming right now. Both Nathan and Chessie looked to see who the new engine was. The new engine was a nickel-plate road Hudson locomotive. The engine was big, slightly smaller than Nathan, but probably just as powerful. Nathan, Chessie, meet Anthony. I found him while visiting Louisiana at some quarry place, and he was in good enough condition to be steamed up for operating service, so I purchased him. Well, greetings, Anthony. Welcome to the Tidewater Point and Pacific Railroad, home of the one and only Tidewater Limited. The new engine smiled for a moment, and then spoke. Thanks, guys. You really know how to make an old feller like me feel welcome on a new railroad like this. Yes. Now, Nathan and Chessie, Anthony will be put in charge of mixed goods, meaning, Chessie, when you're away, Anthony will be pulling freight, and Nathan, when you're away, Anthony will be hauling passenger trains. Well, alrighty then. Sounds like a plan. Over the next couple of months, Anthony spent his days pulling the Tidewater Limited while Nathan helped Chessie out on freight duties. On the runs between Tidewater and Lake George, it was concluded that Anthony matched and sometimes even exceeded Nathan's performance. Mr. Reed was pleased with these results, feeling that his purchase was worth it. One day, Anthony was waiting at a stop at Selwyn Falls with the Tidewater Limited, waiting to depart, when he spotted something across the street. It was an old building, a pub so to say. There was also a man in front of the building packing up some things in his car. Anthony whistled to him. "Hello, sir," Anthony called out. "Oh, hello there. I haven't seen you around here. You must be new." "I am new. I was recently purchased by the controller of this railway. How are you?" "Oh, I'm all right. I'm just packing up me things before I shut the old pub down for good." "What?" I know. You're new around here, so you probably don't know much about the place, but let me tell you something. This pub was a staple here in Lake George. People used to flock here when it was first opened, but over the years, business just dried up. I mean, I barely have enough finances to keep the place open, and I'm assuming no one will come in anymore, so it just seems no one cares about the old pub anymore." "Well, good God! That's terrible. I wish there was something I could do, honest." I know. But alas, I saw this coming down the line somewhere, and I knew there was no avoiding it. Well, I'll be on my way. I'm sorry, sir. I hope things get better for you." A few moments later, the signal turned to green, and Anthony departed Lake George with a return trip to Tide. Anthony came back to the sheds later that afternoon. Mr. Reed was talking with Nathan and Chessie when he pulled up. "Hey, Anthony, how are you?" Anthony didn't reply. Instead, he looked at the other engines with a sullen look on his face. "Anthony, you don't seem like yourself. There's something bothering you?" "Well, yeah. There's an old pub closing down in Lake George, and the guy there is probably going to be out of a job in a few months." "Oh, really? I'm sorry to hear that, man. That really sucks." "I heard about that place closing down. That's Mr. Alfred's pub. I will admit, that was a nice place. Not because it was a pub, but because it was more of a family restaurant. I mean, you could stop in on the afternoons, meet the nice people in there. I mean, it's just a shame that it's all going to waste." "Well, I mean, I really wish there was something we could do to save it." "Well, I mean, how are we gonna save it?" "Well, I mean, we could make a proposal to the city of Lake George, or maybe fund a Kickstarter." "Well, we can't fund a Kickstarter because, well, who wants to save an old pub? And we can't run a special passenger train there because what's the point? It would be a wasted investment. And besides, we already have the Tidewater Limited." As the others talked, Nathan was thinking, when suddenly an idea popped in his head. "Hey guys, what if we were to actually fund his business using our train?" "You know, Nathan, that isn't a bad idea. That could actually work. We could convert one of the passenger cars into a tavern. That way Mr. Alfred can set up shop there on the way to Lake George, and people can have a taste of what it's like to go out to lunch at that pub." "Well, I have to say, your ideas sound plausible. I think I'll make a business agreement with Mr. Alfred." The next morning, Mr. Alfred was packing his things when Mr. Reed showed up. "Hello, Mr. Alfred. How are you doing?"
"Oh, hello. You must be Mr. Reed. How are you doing?"
"Good. And things are about to get even better for the both of us. You haven't sold the property off, have you?"
"No, I haven't. Why?"
"Because, Mr. Alfred, I have a business proposal for you to save your pub."
"You do, really? What is it?"
"After making an agreement with my engines, I have decided to advertise your business via my train, the Tidewater Limited. I will also be allowing you to use one of my passenger cars as a moving tavern so people can get a feel of what it's like to eat out at your pub. You'll have to sign this contract right here. Deal or no deal?"
"Mr. Reed, I call that a bargain. The best I've ever had."
Following the agreement and the signing of the contract, Mr. Alfred's pub was now being advertised on the Tidewater Limited. Mr. Alfred conducted operations in the tavern car, and people flocked to the passenger car to see what it was like to eat out at his pub. He soon used the funds to reopen the old building, and soon, customers started showing up. Operations first started out as a few customers a day, but that number soon grew to a few customers an hour. That number soon grew to 32 customers a day. The number skyrocketed to 102 customers a day, until finally, the limit capacity reached 202 customers a day. The Tidewater Point Pacific also held special events that helped advertise his business. Soon, Mr. Alfred's pub was back in business, and customers were flocking to it every day. Back at the sheds, the engines were talking about the past month's events, when suddenly Mr. Alfred showed up.
"Well, hello, engines. Nathan, Chessie, and Anthony. And you too, Mr. Reed."
"How are things holding up at the pub, Mr. Alfred?"
"Great, actually. I'm making more profit than I used to."
"We're glad to hear, Mr. Alfred. It would have been a shame to see the old place go, but thanks to Anthony, it's still standing right where it is."
"Yes, and that's what I've come to thank ye engines for. Especially you, Anthony. Had it not been for you and your persistence, I'd probably be collecting unemployment right now and out of a job. But thanks to you, I'm still running. And business has been brought back to my pub.
I'm glad I could help, sir. Well, if I do say myself, I think we've done a pretty good deed here, engines. Job well done.